that we'll want to adopt. All three for election 2020, that is the strength and the position that we'll want to have at the end of these elections, so that we can ensure that the progress that we have made, we can continue to build on that, and to ensure that Nevis continues to be a major factor in the overall political landscape and developmental landscape here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Once again, good evening. Thank you, and we'll have a wonderful evening here this evening. I should say CCM style.
Thank you very much, Minister Jeffers. You know, the live is starting to fill up nicely. There are some persons, though, who are saying that they're having a little bit of trouble accessing the live from the original link. The link is up, it's good, it's going now. So I want all of you to log on. If your friends are not on, go and tell your friends that the live is up. Go and log on, listen to us. We're going to have a very, very good time tonight. You've heard the introduction from our candidates. They have given you a brief of why the Concerned Citizens Movement, why the CCM is the better team to go over to St. Kitts. And the simple thing that we are saying from this platform is to strengthen our mandate. In 2015, we got 2 of the 3 seats. We are coming back in 2020 to say, give us all 3 seats. Strengthen the mandate of the Concerned Citizens Movement so that we can do more on behalf of all of the people of Nevis. I think the consensus that we have gotten here on the island of Nevis is that the representation of the Concerned Citizens Movement over the last 5 years in the federal government has brought a lot of fruits to the people of Nevis. And so if we did that with 2 out of 3, we can do better with 3 out of 3. And the candidates that we are bringing before the people of Nevis are more than qualified, more than capable, and they are ready to go. The CCM is a team that is full of talent, and we have brought talented gentlemen who have proven it by their works over and over again that they are ready and willing and able to represent for all of the people of Nevis. However, you would notice that all 4 of us who are up here, that we are wearing our masks for COVID-19, because that is the situation that we are in. That is the new normal that we have to adapt. The masks aren't necessarily the most comfortable. And I know I shouldn't be touching my face, so I'm going to try not to, because that is a part of the protocol. But be that as it may, all of us have a responsibility to do the things that we have to do. I was very happy, very heartened the other day to see a post coming up saying that all of the individuals in the Federation who had been exposed to and had contracted COVID-19 had been cured of the COVID-19 or had recovered from the COVID-19. So at present, on the record, here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have no cases of COVID-19. And I believe, and I think that all of us would say that the government had a big role to play in the way that COVID-19 has been handled here in the Federation. And so I want to put the first question out there, and I will allow the Premier to start since he is a member of the Federal Cabinet. And I will say, Mr. Premier, how do you feel about the way that the government has handled the whole COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, I think the proof of the pudding is in the eating, as they say. COVID-19 came at us out of nowhere. I have said publicly that when I first heard of Wuhan in China, I never thought that Wuhan would get to Bastille or to Charlestown. The truth is that COVID-19 came out of nowhere and has been the bane of our existence. It has touched every corner of the globe. The consequence of that has been that we have had to prepare. Where there's been no manual, there's no manuscript, there's no way that we knew how to prepare. We had, of course, first to talk about our health, because initially and primarily it was a health challenge. And I am delighted at how we all rose to the occasion in order to address this risk of COVID-19 and to do so in the way that we were able to do so. I believe that the Prime Minister led in a stellar way on St. Kitts, and certainly I tried in Nevis with the assistance of my colleagues to also lead effectively on the island of Nevis. We have had a number of issues, a number of concerns. We had to, of course, put many things in place. There was a lot of what we did that was very difficult. We are not accustomed to being locked up in our homes. We were told we couldn't go out. We had to maintain social distancing. We had to function in a particular way. And it was difficult. But we persevered, and I believe that when I say the proof of the pudding is in the eating, is that St. Kitts and Nevis now can say that all the persons who were affected by COVID, all the confirmed cases, some 15 cases, they have all recovered. In fact, Nevis, I believe, to our credit, we have not had a positive COVID case since the 7th day of April. So we have in fact gone now, going on, let's see, April, May, almost 2 months that we've not had any cases of COVID on the island of Nevis. And so the 4 cases we have recovered. We have no pending tests. We have no one in quarantine. And so we are seeing the light at the end of this dark tunnel getting ever brighter as we go past this particular period. And so I am very pleased. I hope the public is pleased with the leadership. We have not only tried to lead in terms of the health response, we have also led in terms of the effort to ease the pain that our people have been experiencing economically and otherwise. Our farmers have got some relief, our fishers have got some relief. We have provided some relief to persons who have been laid off, persons who are unemployed, small businesses, self-employed individuals. We have expanded our safety net in a significant way, and I would want to pay a credit to my colleagues here with me and to you yourself as a member of the cabinet of the Nevis Island administration, because we all agreed that we would take a pay cut and through that pay cut demonstrate to our people that we're in this with them. I have said from the outset that we're all in this together, and only together will we be able to overcome it. We understand the hardship, we understand the difficulty, but let me try thank the people of Nevis, because I believe through all the hardship and difficulty, they have also understood that the difficult decisions that were taken to keep them safe.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Premier. And I note you spoke about the pay cut that we all took. The ministers decided to take a 10% pay cut, but you yourself, Mr. Premier, would have basically foregone the NIA salary. Tell us a little bit about that, because that is not something that has gone unnoticed.
Well, I think that I found myself in a different position to many, in that, of course, the people of Nevis having elected me, both at the local level and at the federal level, I, of course, receive my emoluments from both. And so in my case, I was able to say I would forego the larger of the two sums, which is the salary and benefits to the Premier of Nevis, and I have done so indefinitely. I think that all of us are at different positions and at different stages, and my colleagues who are here with me, particularly the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, he would already have taken a 10% pay cut in 2013. So this is the second haircut that he's taken voluntarily. I think what the people and our people should consider is that there was nothing that required us to do it. In fact, there wasn't even any public pressure. There was no conversation in the public square about our pay and taking a pay cut. We decided on this, the matter was brought, and the cabinet readily decided that this is something that we wanted to do. And so, you said it has not gone unnoticed. I do realize that there was a tremendous level of press attention, but the truth is it comes from our heart. We wanted to demonstrate to the people of Nevis that we understand that difficult times have come. None of us asked for it. None of us invited COVID. COVID came uninvited. But we now know that it is with us, it is causing hardship, and we felt that it was important that we who are entrusted with leadership demonstrate that we are in this with our people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Premier. COVID has affected all facets of life, and Minister Evelyn, as Minister with responsibility for social services, tell us a bit about how in your ministry you have had to cope with the scourge of COVID-19 and some of the things that you have been leading on to
Well,
assist.
certainly it has been a challenge for the Department of Social Services over the past couple of weeks. This is something that, as the Premier always says, we do not have a playbook for this. This is something that we never expected. This is something that we do not have a manual for. But I must say that the staff at the Department of Social Services, they did rise to the challenge, and I'm very proud of the way that my staff would have handled this entire situation. Throughout all of the lockdown periods, even when we had entire lockdowns, the staff was out every day, Monday to Friday, ensuring that what needed to be done in terms of social services was done, and was done in a very effective way as well. One of the things that we did quite a bit was we facilitated caregivers in terms of getting permission letters for them to be on the road during the lockdown periods. Of course, we know that we do have persons in their homes. Some persons live alone, and some persons need to be attended to during the course of the day. If there are some who probably need to be bathed, some need to be fed, some need to have their meals taken to them, and so we would have done that, and I think we would have done, the last count that I had, I think was over 60 or 70 of those permission letters. And I want here to say thank you to the security forces, the police, High Command, for assisting us and facilitating us where that is concerned. Of course, they worked exceptionally well with our team at the Social Services Department in ensuring that persons who had to give primary care to their relatives, to their friends, to persons in the community who absolutely needed that care, that they were given the requisite permission to do that. The other thing that we have done in social services, and it is something that I've stressed over the past weeks, we now have a counseling unit in social services. And this was an unprecedented period that we found ourselves in. And there have been many persons who are even strong mentally, who are being challenged mentally in terms of dealing with the situation. Of course, we're not accustomed to being at home 24/7. We're not accustomed to being away from our jobs for those long periods of times. We're not accustomed to lining up at the supermarkets and at the pharmacies to get stuff. And so it brought a lot of challenges that we were not expecting. And so persons needed to be kept mentally stable. We would have made an appeal to members of the general public to contact our counselors, and persons would have done so. The counselors were available, and they were available via conversation, via phone, whether or phone or WhatsApp messages, text messages, and persons did respond. And we were happy to be able to counsel persons in terms of being mentally stable. Unfortunately as well, we also had some persons who called in terms of domestic violence. And I would have made an appeal earlier that this was absolutely not the time. There's absolutely no time for domestic violence. And it's unfortunate that persons took advantage of the COVID situation to domestically abuse other persons. One of the main things that we did at social services was that we facilitated a number of persons in terms of getting food vouchers. This has been a challenging and difficult period for many persons. Of course, we know that hundreds of persons are out of work. Of course, we know that the stimulus package is available. Persons are benefiting in various forms, from various ways, from Social Security, from social services, from other things that the Concerned Citizens Movement is doing. But persons needed to be assisted in terms of getting food. And so the Social Services Department was called upon. They had numerous requests. They had visits as well to the office. And I am very proud to say that we responded to almost all of those visits and all of those calls and all of those requests. The last time I would have checked, sometime last week, we would have done food vouchers to the tune of almost $40,000. And that's quite a bit, almost $40,000. We had, up to last week, we had assisted, or we had given food vouchers to over 350 persons. And of course, that does not include the other vouchers that persons would have been getting through the initiative that the Concerned Citizens Movement has done. And so the staff at social services was kept exceptionally busy during that period of time. I also have to say as well that during the period of lockdown, we have a feeding program where persons receive meals, maybe 3 times per day, some more than 3 times per week. And we continued that program because we kept saying that no one should be left hungry. And so those persons who normally receive the food program from social services were able to continue to benefit during our lockdown periods. And so I must say kudos to the director and her team at social services for rising to the challenge and doing what I would consider an outstanding job. I know it was not easy, and I know persons would have called and would have complained, but I must say that the staff there was under tremendous pressure over the past weeks. But I think they did a really exceptional job in responding, and responding in a timely manner as well. Because I must admit here as well that sometimes we cannot respond the same day. Sometimes requests come in and we have to ensure that we do our necessary checks and balances, and we do our background checks to ensure that the persons who are requesting the assistance do need the assistance. And so they had some challenging periods. The phones were ringing daily, many times per day, but I must say kudos to them. I think they responded in an exceptional way. And if they had to do it again, they will do it again. So thanks to the staff at social services. I'm very proud of what you all have accomplished. And I must say here as well that social services also facilitated the distribution of other food vouchers. Apart from the food vouchers that came directly from social services, we did receive $10,000 worth of food supply from SL Hospitals and Company Limited. And the persons who would have received those vouchers were mostly identified by the staff at social services. Social services would have also received support from Republic Bank, support from UNICEF. We would also receive support from the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and of course as well the Red Cross. And so we want to say thanks to those institutions that would have partnered with social services, and we do look forward to partnering with you in the future. So kudos to social services, and just want to add to what the Premier said in terms of what we as the ministers did. I think what we did deserves commendation. It was genuine, it came from our hearts, and I have to publicly once again commend the Premier for foregoing his entire salary and the benefits. And I don't think that there's any other leader in the region who would have done something like that. So I would like to commend the Premier, and of course commend all of my cabinet colleagues for such a wonderful gesture.
Thank you very much, Minister Evelyn. And you know, COVID virus came at us, and it was unexpected, and it has been really bad. But probably if there's one good thing that has come out of it, if you drive around Nevis, you notice that you see the tractors going around, and a lot of land is being plowed and so on. So one of the things that it has caused us to do is to focus on our own production here. You see the fishermen going out and so on, and a lot of people are now into buying the local fish produce and the local agriculture produce here. And Minister Jeffers, you are the Minister of Agriculture, and I know that you have been central in this whole response to the COVID virus. You're not just the Minister of Agriculture, but you're also the Minister with responsibility for disaster management. And the Department of Disaster Management has been at the center. They have been in the focus of everything that has been happening in terms of the government's response to the COVID virus. So please give us, you know, for the listening public, a little bit more insight into what your role has been and what the role of agriculture and the role of the disaster management has been.
Yes, thank you very much, Roy. I want to start with my response by starting with a quotation that I've been guided by for many, many years. And that is, it has to do with planning. And I quote, planning prevents you from stumbling into the future backwards. And I say that to say this, that at the start of the year 2020, we would have met at the NEPAC, Nevis Performing Arts Center, and we laid out an aggressive program for production in agriculture here on the island of Nevis throughout the year 2020. Now, we didn't know that we would have been affected by COVID-19 the way that we have had to deal with it and the way that it has affected us to this point in time. But I said before that you have to start by planning. And we started with a plan leading up to our 26th hosting of the Agriculture Open Day. Mm-hmm. So it means then production would have had to be at a certain level to meet the demands for that particular event. And I want to apologize, this mask is somewhat uncomfortable, but anyway, we'll get through it. So we were planning for that event. It didn't come off because of the difficulties that we encountered, or the crisis that we are currently encountering. But be that as it may, production was at a level that we felt would have been sustained throughout the whole of this year. COVID-19 presented a new challenge for us in agriculture, in that we realized that throughout the world, or throughout the globe, commerce, the economic wheel would have been halted, and all sorts of factors would have prevented food from getting to our shores in a timely manner. It is almost like after a hurricane, but a different type of crisis. But of course, with the various parts of the world that we look towards for food, they are encountering the same challenge. So of course, they would have to do what is necessary to feed their own people. So we decided from the Department of Agriculture standpoint that we've had to do what is necessary to ensure that these circumstances are mitigated in terms of the challenges that we will face. And that is why at this point I want to congratulate and thank the Permanent Secretary in Agriculture, Mr. Huey Sargent, the Director of Agriculture, Mr. Randy Elliott, and all of the staff supervisors and field workers at the Department of Agriculture, because they came on board with a plan very early. I did say in January we came and we presented a plan at NEPAC that was Agenda 2020, and in that program, or that agenda that we presented, we certainly sought to involve all of our stakeholders, farmers, fishers, livestock farmers as well. Everyone was involved in those plans and the execution thereof of those plans into the year 2020. But I said that I want to congratulate all at the department, because the plans they came up with, the short-term plans, medium-term and long-term plans, were exactly what we needed at this time. We certainly would have assisted our farmers, the crop farmers, livestock farmers and fisher folks, in that with respect to our crop farmers, we would have given them, we made available to them seeds and seedlings. We also made available fertilizer. We have had discount in water, or in some cases free water for the next 6 months thereabout. And then thereafter we'll have to revisit that to see if we'll have to go on further. But we'll do what is necessary in the area of water to ensure that our farmers are receiving an adequate supply of water. Now I want to say at this point in time, no situation is perfect. And of course, we may not have come up with a perfect answer to this COVID situation, but it is one that our farmers are appreciative at this point in time of. And I want to encourage our farmers to continue in their quest to produce more here on the island of Nevis. I want to also say to you that in 2013, speaking of plans once again, when we came into government, for example, down at Indian Castle, for example, this is just an example of where we're coming from. When we came into government in 2013, Indian Castle was planted, many acreage of cotton was planted down there. We felt at that point in time that cotton cannot be the answer to our food supply here on the island of Nevis. Let me say to you, Troy, imagine you have cotton down there today and trying to feed the people of Nevis. Just wrap your head around that and you understand why we had to move on from there and start producing food. Right now, if you were to go to Indian Castle, you'll find sweet potatoes, you'll find cassava, you'll find watermelon. So we're planting food down there, and I am amazed with the quality of the crops down there because it is on the southeastern side of the island, the Atlantic side of the island, and you'll think that there might be some difficulties there. I apologize, audience, but this is somewhat uncomfortable. But you would think that it would have been difficult to plant crops in the area, in that area. But we have been able to produce, and the production has been prolific. In that, cassava, for example, we have been able to produce cassava at a rate that we are now using cassava to make, or cassava, the byproduct, to make bread, composite bread, out of cassava flour. And that has been a popular and a most sought after product here on the island of Nevis. Every Friday we produce bread at the agro-processing unit made of pumpkin, cassava, and also merengue flour. So we are looking at doing things that would feed our people and not so much things that we feel are outdated or anachronistic in some way. We have gone beyond cotton and we are into food production, which is to our benefit here on the island of Nevis. And I want to commend the department and also the administration for its foresight and to say to us at the department, go and plant food. We need food on the island, and I am proud that we have been able to produce at the level that we can say that we are sustainable in certain areas, especially in the production of tomatoes and also watermelon and pumpkin. We don't import those products here on the island at all. So when persons look at agriculture and wondering what is happening in agriculture, when you go along this side of the road here in Nevis, you see all of these satellite stalls selling locally produced products. It means we are heading in the right direction. We are heading in a direction where we feel that at some point, if those boats don't come, if those ships don't come and land those cargo of food products, we can feed ourselves for a certain period of time, whether it's a month, 2 months, or more. I would hope that we can produce and feed ourselves for at least 12 months here without any disruption, and that is what we are aiming for. I'm wondering if I could remove this since the three of you have your mask on. I don't think it will be any harm to you, but anyway. So as I was saying, that agriculture is in good hands here on the island of Nevis, and I do believe that over the next couple of months we'll be able to see the fruits of all of our labor, in that we have given out some seedlings, and of course if you're planting a 3-month crop, then over the next 3 months we should have a bountiful harvest in certain products here on the island of Nevis. That is on the crop side. On the fishing side of it, we have been working with our fisher folks. I want to go back to 2013 as well, Troy, and tell you, back in 2013, not a roll of fish pot wire was being sold on the island of Nevis. Our fisher folks had to go to St. Kitts, purchase and find their way over, whether walking through Bastille with that roll of wire, hiring a taxi or some other means of transportation to get it to the pier in St. Kitts and then to Nevis. That was a situation that we met in 2013. Thereafter, we would have thought about procuring fish pot wire for our fisher folks, and we were able to do so out of St. Martin, and we were able to offer some discounted prices to our fisher folks here on the island. So that was our way back then to ensure that we can supply fish pot wires to our fisher folks and to ensure that they're able to ply their trade and provide us with that meat product fish that we so love here on the island of Nevis. Fast forward to 2020, we have gone a step further in that we understand the difficulty that our fisher folks would face in terms of the delivery of fish pot wires. So we were able to procure fish pot wires through our Marines department. And of course I want to thank Mr. Mark Wilkin out of St. Kitts and our Deputy Director here as well, Mr. Lemuel Pemberton, and the Permanent Secretary also for ensuring that we were able to capitalize on that and get some well-needed fish pot wire for our fishermen here on Nevis. So we did a distribution about 2 weeks ago. We were able to give a free roll to the boat owners who are registered with the department, and I do believe there are in excess of 80 plus registered fishermen at the department. Then the second roll would be offered at half price. Now we're hoping to get some more rolls of wires shortly, and of course those who did not get in the first instance will receive fish pot wires shortly again. So we're working towards ensuring that our fisher folks as well do get the benefit that they need at this time. I know it's a challenging time, and indeed, since the lockdown, I'm certain they themselves are experiencing some difficulties. So if we're able to offer them a free roll of wire and one at half price, it means that they're able to go out and ply the trade and make up for certain differences that they would have experienced during this difficult time. But our fisher folks are doing a marvelous job, because they would have gone out with the regulations that are in place. They would have gone out and they have been supplying our fisheries department down there on Market Street with fresh fish. So I want to encourage our division public to visit the fisheries complex down there on Market Street next to the public market, and you can get locally caught fish or local fish. And of course, I want to also say that we have given fish pot, not fish pot wire, but free fencing wire to our livestock farmers and also our crop farmers as well. So I want to say that if I were to give an assessment of what has happened, I will say that we're in good standing in agriculture in all areas. Our stakeholders who are farmers or fisher folks and also our livestock farmers are on board. And of course, if there are challenges out there, I want you to let it be known to the Department of Agriculture so that your challenges can be addressed and looked into. With respect to disaster management, we are experiencing a crisis at this time, Troy. But of course, the crisis is health related. But we are playing our role from the disaster management department also in that the EOC building, the Emergency Operating Center, is one that was the brainchild of the director of the Nevis Disaster Management Agency or Department, Mr. Brian Dyer, who would have gone about procuring some of the equipment that are necessary at this point in time to be used by the task force that is heading up this particular crisis. So you have persons there 24 hours a day, and of course they're there 24 hours a day because the environment or the building is accommodating in that regard, and persons are there and making sure that all of the plans and programs centered around COVID-19 are being handled from that particular location. We have to keep in mind as well at this point in time, even though we are looking at COVID and facing that challenge, there's a challenge that is looming in about 10 days time or a little more than 10 days, which is the start of the hurricane season, the 1st of June. That presents a brand new challenge for us, and this year it is a much more dynamic situation in that you'll be battling COVID on one hand and also looking towards the hurricane season for the next 6 months. So we have been meeting and we have been discussing all of the scenarios that we could potentially face. And of course we met as a team, I believe a week ago thereabout. And I want to thank all who would have come out to that meeting and who have certainly volunteered to be a part of the planning and the execution of that particular department and those committees over the next 6 months. But I want to say throughout the year, last year and leading into this year, there are various facets of disasters that we have had to look at, and we continue to look at all of these areas because you never know. COVID has taught us something that you never know what will visit us any given day. And that being said, I do believe the same thing I said from the get-go. Planning prevents you from stumbling into the future backwards. And that is why it's important to continue our plans and to continue, rehearsing and pursuing certain drills to make sure that if and when the time comes, we are ready. And that's why I believe we are facing COVID-19 head-on, and we're doing a remarkable job as an administration. And all of the personnel who are involved who have been doing a wonderful job, I want to commend them as well. And of course, the leadership of the island of Nevis has been stellar at this point in time. So all in all, I believe we can report that we have done a good job with the limited amount of resources we have here on the island of Nevis, but it doesn't gives us any comfort just to sit back on our hands or sit back and think that it's all said and done, but to continue to plan for the next level or plan for the next opportunity to execute what we have planned for and what we have learned. But Troy, you know, I don't want to hug the mic for tonight, so I'll leave it as that. But essentially, I want to say to you and to the general public, the listening and viewing public, that although Nevis is COVID-free at this point in time, we continue to pursue all of the necessary protocols and all of the necessary things that are needed to ensure that we remain in good standing, but also to ensure that we are moving beyond this stage and looking at what is to come and making sure that when the Atlantic presents a challenge for us, that we are ready for it as well.
I just wanted to add as well, Troy, with regards to agriculture, because of course, I think everybody knows that agriculture is in my veins. I would have spent all of my work life in the civil service in the Ministry and Departments of Agriculture. And I must say that I'm very heartened with the work that has been happening in agriculture since we've been going through this period of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I must give commendation to the minister, to you, Minister Jeffers, as well as your entire team there at Agriculture. You know, it has been said nowadays that everybody has become a farmer. And it's amazing the surge in interest that we have seen on the island from not only registered farmers, but as well as from backyard gardeners, and even persons who may not have done any farming or backyard gardening before. There has been a lot of interest generated, and I believe it augurs well for the development of the industry in the future. Agriculture, of course, is extremely important, and we must pay more attention to food security. I know that there are a number of persons who would have contacted me, because persons are accustomed to me being in agriculture, and so persons still contact me. And they have been saying, well, I'm interested in doing farming, I want land, I want seeds, I want seedlings. And I was particularly heartened a couple of days ago, Alexis, when I spoke to one of your tractor drivers. Because the tractor driver, I met the tractor driver, I think it was on a weekend, and I made a joke and I said to him, well, he told me that he's been working every day, 7 days a week, almost 24/7, to ensure that persons who require land preparation are being serviced and serviced in a timely manner. And I said to him, you're working every day, including weekends, even lockdown days, Saturdays and Sundays. And I jokingly said, well, I guess you're probably getting some good overtime. He said, no, we are doing the weekends free of cost. We are not charging, because he said that we are in this together. He said, well, when there was a lockdown, we were home, we were getting paid, and now it's time for us to give back. And so we are working 7 days a week. So on Saturdays and Sundays when we work, when we do the land preparation, we work sometime up until 6 o'clock, and we're doing it absolutely free. And I think that deserves commendation. And I think this is a time when people rise to the challenge, and I must give kudos to the tractor drivers and all of the other workers in agriculture, because I've been seeing them on the road 7 days a week as well. And so kudos to you, Minister Jeffers, and kudos to the entire team there at Agriculture for this great resurgence in the interest of agriculture on the island of Nevis.
But I want to go one step further if I can, Eric, because you were there as the Permanent Secretary of Agriculture when we procured 2 brand new tractors, Massey Ferguson tractors, and a brand new backhoe, and 2 pickups back in, I believe it was 2015, thereabout, yet. Just prior to you becoming a minister, a full-fledged minister in the NIA. And with those equipment, we have done a marvelous job in terms of our reach to our farmers. In that, I believe when you were there back in 2013, there was at some point 1 tractor that we had in service. And that would have prevented us from executing our plans and programs then, and to ensuring that our farmers who we serve were receiving adequate service at that point in time. So when we got those pieces of equipment, and I want to say thanks to the Republic of China, Taiwan, and the ambassador for, well, I have to go further and say to the people, the government and people of the Republic of China, Taiwan as well, for their generosity in ensuring that their contribution to the development of agriculture continues, because they've been with us for quite a number of years. I mean, going back to 1983 or thereabout. So they've been with us for a very long time, and they've done a wonderful job in various areas. But since agriculture is the area that I am pretty much responsible for, I want to thank them for their effort in that regard. And of course, you would have seen those new tractors going out in recent times, which you spoke about. So there are good things happening in agriculture. As I said before, there is no perfect or ideal situation that you can always boast about. But I want to say, with all of the challenges in agriculture and all of the difficulties, we've been able to introduce new technology in agriculture here on the island of Nevis. Greenhouse production as well. You recall we procured a greenhouse back in 2000 and I believe 14 or thereabout from ICA and also Cardi. They would have jointly sponsored that shade house or greenhouse. And we have seen some young persons who are now getting into greenhouse production. Of course, Mackie Truss, McLevin Truss up there, A1 Farms, I think that is the name of his business. And then up the road here, by just below Horsford, you see some pieces of material there. That is potentially a greenhouse that will go up there as well too. I think the lockdown has prevented the construction of that because the team that would help with the construction will come from Jamaica, I believe. But we do have some expertise here, but I do, based on the conversation I've had with the young man there, he is waiting for some assistance out of Jamaica as well. So we'll see these things happen over the next couple of years where we, from the Department of Agriculture standpoint, will continue to lend our support to young men. Over in the Cherry Garden area, in terms of livestock production, there's a team over there that have gone into livestock production. They came to the Department of Agriculture. We would have lent our support to them in terms of assisting them with fencing wire and also the expertise in terms of advice and assistance from the Department of Agriculture. And we'll continue to do that because as agriculture go, I suppose that's how the island will go as well. Meaning, an island that cannot feed itself, I do believe, is in trouble. And simply put, you'll be in trouble. And that is why we believe it is important to secure that particular sector to ensure that we're feeding ourselves. I can go on and talk about agriculture all night, but I suppose there's so many areas to touch. But I just want to leave it there for now by saying that those persons who have any doubts as to what is happening in agriculture, just look around. And I feel so good walking up to one of these stalls and picking up food items that were produced right here on the island of Nevis. It is wholesome, it is healthy, you know exactly what is going into them because when something comes from further afield, whether it's Brazil, anywhere in South America, in the United States, you absolutely don't know what those food items contain. But here on the island of Nevis, some of us pass these plots of land every day and we see what our farmers are doing. We from the Department of Agriculture standpoint would know because we have our extension officers that goes out and visit these farms. So we know what is going on and we appreciate the effort and we want to make sure that we're feeding our people to make sure we are staying healthy and wealthy here on the island of Nevis.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, we are here because election has been called. General elections for the federal cabinet here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So you three gentlemen are going to be going up against the candidates that the opposition, the NRP, put forward. Or maybe at least for now we know the Alexis and the Premier has an candidate to run against. I'm not sure who will be coming up against you, Eric, in Gingerland. But nonetheless, we're here for elections and federal elections. And what has been the benefit of federal elections over the years for the people of Nevis? Of course, we have had coalition governments in the past. We had the NRP and PAM. We had the NRP and Labour. And we now have the CCM government in Team Unity. Prior to that, the CCM government had never joined with a party on St. Kitts before. The opportunity had presented itself before. It was not taken. The circumstances were different after getting into government in 2013, and therefore the party took the decision to become a part of Team Unity and to go into government. And based on what we have heard from persons all around St. Kitts and Nevis, from persons, Nevisians out in the diaspora, it has been a success. Premier Brantley, as a member of the Team Unity government, as the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Aviation, gave the people a feel of how it has been to be in the federal government and some of the benefits that have come to the people of Nevis from you being a part of the federal government.
Well, in 2013, I think the circumstance, going back to the history that you spoke to, where CCM had adopted a position of neutrality over the past several years. In 2013, the circumstances had changed. We had a government on St. Kitts that was openly hostile to the then Nevis Island administration. And as a consequence of that, clearly, we were required to do something about it. And I like to reflect in my quiet moments that we decided that what we would need to do is to change the government in Bastille. And the Concerned Citizens Movement went to work to do that. And I am happy that through that coalition arrangement, through that Team Unity arrangement, we have been able to make some substantial changes. We look all the time and we say, well, what has Nevis benefited? And we compare where we are now to the coalition governments we've had in the past. And you're absolutely correct. We've had a PAM-NRP coalition. We've had a NRP Labour coalition. And I do believe that if there is another party to emerge, that the NRP would perhaps coalesce with them as well. The NRP is a party that clearly leans on other parties. The CCM has not been that. We have always been strong. And so when we decided to coalesce in 2015, it was because we had run into an obstacle on Church Street. And we had a government there openly hostile to the people of Nevis. I believe all of us in Nevis will remember that fateful Wednesday when our checks in Nevis were bounced, that the civil servants in Nevis could not get paid. And I remind the people of Nevis that when that happened, the NRP was sitting in the federal government. And that Patrice Nisbet, the member from number 11, was at the table when the decision was taken to bounce the checks of the people of Nevis. That to me was a most treacherous act perpetrated against the good, decent citizens of Nevis in an effort to embarrass the Nevis Island administration because it was led by the Concerned Citizens Movement. But here we are now. And all of those actions that were taken ultimately resulted in our people saying that they wanted change. The question is, what has that change accomplished for Nevis? And I would just like to take a moment, because I think that even as I go out now and I canvass and I talk to people and I encourage people to go out and vote and to keep the momentum that we have established, people say, well, what has been done? And I point to so much that has been done. In the context of our young people, I am very proud to say that as foreign minister, I was able, for the first time in our history, to get ambassadors from the island of Nevis. People may look at that and say, what is the big deal? And I'll tell you what the big deal is. Prior to 2015, there had never in the history of this country been anyone from Nevis, no matter how qualified, that rose to the position of our representative in some foreign country. And so I'm very proud of the likes of Her Excellency Sherry Truss, who's now in Canada as our High Commissioner to Canada. I'm very proud of Dr. Everson Hull from Bath Village, who is our ambassador to the OAS. I'm very proud of Elsa Wilkin-Ambrister from St. James, who is our Council Minister in London, at our High Commission in London. I'm very proud of the people that we have here. We have youngsters that I've been able to bring into the foreign ministry who are giving incredibly good service in the field of diplomacy. And so, you know, whether it's a young man, I believe, from the St. James area, we have a young lady from my constituency up here in the Beach Road area. So many people that we've been able to bring on a young lady again from St. James. The Honorable Alexis Jeffers, you know, your people have come into this, the diplomatic corps and are doing well. And it tells me something. It tells me that all the people of Nevis need is an opportunity. And they need a government and representatives who will give them that opportunity. And I reflect that the Minister of Foreign Affairs before me was also in the vision. But someone who, from the NRP, the representative for number 11, who clearly did not see the need to invest in anyone from Nevis. Because it took a team unity administration and the CCM in that team unity to say, hey, we have qualified people from the island of Nevis who must be allowed the opportunity, just like their colleagues from St. Kitts, to play their role in diplomacy. And look at the results. Look at the results. The results speak for themselves. We now have, through our expansion of our diplomatic footprint, one of the most powerful passports in the entire region. Indeed, I believe that we are second now only to Barbados. And we are working on gaining the top spot. When we got in, we had relations with the United States was at an all-time low. Now, we have been able, with the United States, to get what they call a visa interview waiver. We all know, and many of us travel to the United States, that we'd ordinarily have to travel to Barbados every time we want to renew our visa. We have been able to get the United States to say, if you've had a visa before, you do not need to come for that interview. Imagine the savings for our people, that they can now, once they already have their biometrics in Barbados, they can now apply online. Canada imposed visa restrictions on us in 2014. Again, the foreign minister at that time was a good gentleman from number 11. So not only didn't hire a single division and empower a single person from Nevis, far less the constituency of number 11, he also presided over the destruction of our relationship with Canada and with the United States. The United States issued a FinCEN advisory in 2014. Canada was so upset with us that Canada said, listen, the right that you hitherto had to waltz into Toronto for Caribana and enjoy yourself, we are going to strip you of that. And you will now have to apply for a visa to visit Canada. And I recall at the time they made light of it and say nobody wanted to go Canada. They said all kinds of things. The truth was we lost something that we had, and that was of value to us. And it took me as foreign minister to try to repair that relationship. Canada has now moved in the direction of biometrics, that is collecting your fingerprints and the like. And I went to what they call Parliament Hill in Canada. And I recall on one day meeting, I believe, was with 8 parliamentarians in a single day, pressing the case for a restoration of our visa-free access to Canada. They said it would be difficult, and it has been difficult. But at the time, they advised that Canada would now require us to travel to Trinidad in order to apply for a visa because we had to give our fingerprints and the like. And I said to them that if we were required to do that, then I think fewer and fewer people would come to Canada. Because I imagined a poor family of 4 wanting to visit relatives in Toronto, wanting to go on a little holiday or to go to a funeral or a wedding or some graduation, an important event, and that family would have the difficulty of marshalling resources to go to Trinidad with no guarantee that they would get the visa. And I said to them there in Ottawa that could they consider coming to us and doing an itinerant biometrics gathering exercise. They said at the time that it was a bad idea, but you know what? I asked Her Excellency Sherry Truss not to give up. And we pressed and we pressed until last year Canada relented and said, we will now come to you. And so the people of St. Kitts and Nevis now do not have to travel to Barbados or to Trinidad to give any biometrics because Canada is deciding to come to us and to collect the biometrics here. Again, think about the savings to our people. So yes, we have not achieved the restoration of visa-free access, which a member for number 11 lost. But we have achieved a stage where because The relationship has been repaired. Canada is saying, listen, at our expense, that is at Canada's expense, we will come to you. That for me is very important. And we have continued in that vein to develop relations. When I reflect, if I can just segue quickly, that when we look across the landscape of the Federation now, every board that is national in nature has representatives from Nevis. Everyone. Why? Because CCM was at the table and insisted that every citizen must enjoy the full fruits of his or her citizenship. When we reflect that the Speaker of our National Parliament is from Nevis, the Chairman of our Social Security for the first time in history is from Nevis. When we look at the Supervisor of Elections, and as I said the other night, he's no parrot to fly away, serious supervisor, serious gentleman, he's from Nevis. And what it tells me as I walk the streets of Bastille and I interact with our brothers and sisters in St. Kitts is that Nevisians are accepted as being competent, qualified citizens of this country who can make their contribution to the country for the advancement of it. And I think that relationship, that building of the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis, which we know has not always been good, that has been one of the biggest successes in my view of Team Unity. I can go on all night, Troy, because I can talk, for example, about the financial resources that have come. We compare again to when the NRP was there first with PAM, and then NRP again was there with Labour. When NRP and Labour was there, we had the SIDF that took in over $1.2 billion from the processing of our passport under the Citizenship by Investment Program. 1.2 billion with a B. What did the people of Nevis get? I believe they took $4 million and said that they were purchasing the airport lands. But we must look at these things and reflect and compare that to where we are now. Whether it's the water taxi, the hospital expansion, the new treasury building, the Mondo track, new equipment at the tower resurfacing at our airport, investment in culture and Culturama, double salaries, 4 years in a row, back to back to back to back, so that our people could have some ease. You know how much of that double salary must now, for those who saved it, be useful in this COVID pandemic that our people are experiencing? So I say all that to say that the relationship has paid dividends, and it speaks to the wisdom of this party that when the time was right, we opted to join with the parties on St. Kitts to usher in a change of government that I believe has worked well in restoring the relationship between our two islands. And never again has been my pledge and the pledge of the CCM should our checks be bounced because we have a vindictive government in Church Street. Never again. And that is why we continue to say to the people of Nevis that a vote for us is a vote to protect you, to serve you, and to ensure that your voice is strong in Bastille. That we have no discordant note. That when we go to St. Kitts and we sit at the table, that 9, 10, and 11 are singing the same hymn from the same hymn sheet in the same pew and in the same church. That not like now when we get up as CCM representing people of Nevis and say Nevis requires this or that, the good gentleman who now sits in the chair for number 11 says Nevis not out nothing. Nevis not need nothing. We have to ensure that the people of Nevis are at the table where important decisions are being made that impact us. And I believe that we have proven that where the relationship is concerned, the Concerned Citizens Movement is best positioned to ensure that the people of Nevis enjoy the full fruits of their citizenship.
If I can amplify your point a little bit more, Premier Brantley. Well, you have just articulated the hallmark of your representation and the union that we have had with Team Unity in the federal cabinet or federal government. But let's go back to some of these boards. You have talked about the boards, but you didn't even go into some other names, because I am seeking to represent Nevis 11. But before I'm even there, when these matters came up as cabinet, I was the first to jump up and say, listen, I have persons in St. James
Of course.
who I believe can play an integral role, a very important role in shaping the policies and programs of the federal government's position in education, in finance, whatever the area is. So, for example, the Clarence Fitzbryan College board, that has two persons from St. James who are on that board.
Absolutely.
Miss Gail Mills and Mrs. Jennifer Hodge. I was the one who said they can play a major role in the development and shaping the direction of that particular
And they have
institute.
delivered.
And they have delivered.
Absolutely.
They have delivered, and the examples are there to show. I also want to highlight as well, you did say Social Security, the chairman of Social Security Board, Oscar Walters, he's from the parish of St. Thomas, or St. Thomas Parish. He's also in Nevis 11.
He lives there, he's from Brownhill.
If I'm Brownhill, but
It's my constituency. So let's get it straight.
yeah, well, he would have.
You try to claim everything for number 11 now.
No, he would have migrated from St. Johnston. he would have seen a good reason to come over to
Yes,
St. Thomas Parish,
Yes.
because, of course, the progress that have been made there under the CCM, he couldn't wait to get over. But anyway, he is there as the chairman of the Social Security Board. And also the National Bank, Dr. Bal Rollins, Dr. Cardell Rollins, he's on that board as well, and he's from the St. Thomas Parish. So perhaps Eric will say
Gingerland.
that he's from Gingerland as well. But there's a good reason why these people are coming to that side of the island, because of course we are progressive people over there, and there have been some transformation of the parish of St. James and St. Thomas, and also the whole of Nevis anyway. But since I'm speaking specifically to that area, that is why I'm mentioning that. But also in training, because of you being the Minister of Foreign Affairs, we have had quite a number of persons who have gone to various parts of the world. As a matter of fact, the Assistant Secretary of Agriculture, the Assistant Permanent Secretary in Agriculture, Ms. Russell Jeffers, would have gone all the way to Morocco for training in agriculture. Brian Dyer, of course, the Director of the Nevis Disaster Management Agency, would have gone off to Indonesia for training as well too. And we have established a good relationship with the people, the government and people of Indonesia. So you have done a marvelous job in ensuring.
We've had the head of our solid waste who's gone to Japan. We've had all these people, Nivisians, exposed.
Exactly.
And that is, I think, what we're about.
And I will say, prior to 2015, that was not the norm. And it must be amplified, and it must be said that if you're voting for persons to represent you, you have to ask them at some point, show me what you've done for me lately.
Exactly.
Show me what you've done for me lately. And you have to ask, what have you done? Why have not you done this for us? When in truth and in fact, the examples are there to show that these things are not insurmountable. They can be done. And if you are committed to representing, then of course we shouldn't be sitting here and saying that we never had that prior to 2015. I myself have benefited. I've gone to various conferences when the Federal Minister of Agriculture have not been able to attend, the Honorable Eugene Hamilton. And we have worked together as a good team, in partnership with each other. Prior to that, a permanent secretary in St. Kitts may have gone to a particular conference where a minister should have gone to. But since the federal minister was not able to attend on certain occasions, he would have yielded to the Minister of Agriculture from Nevis. Such is the partnership, and such has been the relationship in Team Unity. It has not always been good, and we are not here to say that it has always been the best, but it has been better than what it has been before. And we have achieved much more than we have done in the past. And that is why we come back to the people of Nevis. Nevis 9, 10, and 11. Well, in your case, you'll get another term because you have worked for that, and you will be rewarded by the good people of Nevis 9. Well, Eric, you're going to get a nice little shoe-in.
Oh, you say unopposed?
Unopposed. So on that day, because I think if you're not opposed, meaning there's no one nominated, there doesn't have to be any ballot cast up there. So you're going to get a nice little shoe-in. Well, I have work to do, and I'm prepared for the battle, because you know why? I believe that I am more than ready and capable to represent the people of Nevis 11. Because I have said to the people of Nevis 11, I have been a hard worker from day one. When I came into government in 2013, I literally rolled up my sleeve and went to work. And I've gone through the island today, and I've looked at about 20 or 30 projects that I have had my hands on in terms of through the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation. The cabinet had decided that to execute some of these projects, let's use the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation with the management and the resources that are there in terms of the human resource capital to execute some of these projects. When Public Works was up and down the island building a lot of roads, improving the infrastructure. Minister Liebert, you were there back in 2013 to 2017, and you were doing a marvelous job in building out our infrastructure here on the island of Nevis. So we would have taken on some of these projects like construction of the Joyce and Liebert kitchen, and that was done with monies received from the federal government, not the federal treasury, but from the SIDF. Yes. The same SIDF you said had $1.2 billion when the same gentleman, Patrice Nisbet, was there. Did not bring back 1 cent to improve any infrastructure here on the island of Nevis, other than to get us a loan of $4 million, which we, the people of Nevis, would have to pay back. But also NEVLEC. We met NEVLEC in dire straits. We were able to secure $5 million US, which equates to just about 13.5 million EC dollars for a brand new 3.8 megawatt generator, Wärtsilä generator. That is what is providing the stability on our grid here on the island of Nevis right now as we speak. Not only that, in water enhancement, the improvement of our water delivery.
Yeah, Minister Jeffers, you just touched on the NEVLEC.
He stopped me in the full flow.
On the NEVLEC point. No, the reason why I stopped you in full flow is because you just touched on the NEVLEC point and all of these things that we got from St. Kitts. But you jumped off of the NEVLEC point before you sort of explain to the people the conditions that you met at NEVLEC, because I don't think people understand.
What time it is? 20 past 9. I'll take 5 minutes on.
We have time. So I think it's important. I think it's important because we're coming to the people to say, these are the reasons why you should send our candidates, 9, 10, and 11 to St. Kitts to represent for all of us here in Nevis.
Okay.
So speak about the representation that has been done already.
We can do that. I mean, presently the Premier is the minister responsible for NEVLEC. But back then in 2013 up to 2017, I was the minister responsible. And it was a challenge, of course. But as I said in 2013, I literally rolled up my sleeve and said, let's get to work. It was a challenge. Of course, we met NEVLEC in dire straits, like I said. Things were difficult at that point in time. I want to start by saying, prior to 2013, and the Honorable Vance Amri would certainly articulate it just as good as I can, or even better. When NEVLEC was left in the hands of the NRP in 2006, NEVLEC, because I want to say this first of all, that NEVLEC was being prepared to become a public entity in terms of selling shares on the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange. So that is why the finances were in such good shape, and the management of NEVLEC was being done in a way to ensure that there was stability and the attractiveness of that particular institute was there. Grenlec in Grenada is a publicly traded company. Looselec is also a publicly traded company as far as I know. So NEVLEC was being moved into that direction. But in 2013, when we took over the realms of government here on Nevis, of course, we met NEVLEC owing, or the NIA owing NEVLEC in excess of $11 million. Let's skip back, or jump back to 2006. The NIA owed NEVLEC $0, not a penny. So from 2006 to 2013, it jumped to $11 million, in excess of $11 million. Even the fuel company was owed $7.8 million. So you add that to 11.5. So you understand a small entity like NEVLEC with just about 7,000 customers, you understand you know the gravity of the situation. Not only that, there was a water company here, Bede. An arrangement was entered into with Bede, I believe it was in 2008. Somehow that arrangement was changed where the NIA would then pay all of the electricity bills or consumption of the water pumps that we have here on the island of Nevis. And at the point when I left as the minister, that bill had grown to $7 million. Those are serious monies. How can a small institute like NEVLEC survive with so much owing to it? So that is why the young man or the old lady from Hanley's Road or from Fountain, their $200 was important to keep NEVLEC afloat. And they were asked to jump on a bus or walk into town, do whatever it was necessary to go and pay. You know, lo and behold, we found out at that point in time, with all that was owed to NEVLEC by the NIA, and what NEVLEC owed to the fuel company. There was an FM station down there at Penny's, you know, owed NEVLEC over $150 million. 450,000, sorry, thanks for the correction. It sounded small, yeah. It didn't come out right. $150,000 in excess of that. And I said, no, that can't be right. The young man or the old lady were making their way and being cut off for it too, you know, for $200. Whereas $156,000 was owned by this FM station. So I gave the directive to cut them off. What else must you do? You had to cut them off, because if you're asked to pay your bills, but then again, that station was being used to, you know, abuse the premier, abuse me. I got a lot of cuss, but that's fine, that's beside the point. But if you consume the electricity, the right thing to do is to pay your bills. Meantime, that same FM station was collecting $12,000 a month. That's almost $150,000 a year. And every time they did an outside broadcast, you had to pay for that. That's the NIA, $5,000. Now, when I gave the directive to cut it off, and some may say I sound arrogant, but listen, I was given a role to represent and to also work on behalf of the people of Nevis. All these institutions that we manage, we do so on behalf of the people of Nevis. We don't do it for ourselves. So when we go to represent and we go to work, we're working on behalf of the people of Nevis. So when you met these kind of circumstances, you know, when we met that bill and we gave the directive to cut it off, they went to court and said that we are stifling democracy or freedom of speech. So I say, if you want to talk, pay to talk. Pay to talk, pay your bills. Then we eventually got the monies. Eh? I don't know what has become of the radio station, but obviously something must have gone wrong. But be that as it may, if we did not come into government in 2013, it was 150,000 plus then. In arrears, I could imagine what it would have been at this point in time. There was no intention to pay. But meanwhile, while they were not paying, then the whole of Nevis was being trampled upon because of $200, $300. I just bring this up, Minister Liebert, because sometimes you have to go back and then come forward and understand how things have changed and how we have gone in the right direction since then. Remember I said from the get-go, turning back the hands of time. We're not about to do that. Going back is not the way forward. You go back to what you once had, you're asking for problems. We're moving forward. We're moving forward as a government, the Concerned Citizens Movement, and also moving forward with Team Unity. Because of all that you've heard the Premier mention that we have realized from our relationship, there's more to be had. Because we expect to be back in government, in the federal government that is, in a stronger position, so that we can get what is rightfully yours. We're not saying anything here on this platform to create any antagonism anyway, but we are looking for what is rightfully yours. And I do not think anyone across the waters should have any difficulty with us expressing ourselves in this manner in terms of looking for what is rightfully ours. Once we get what is rightfully yours, I've used the term, we'll be living hunky-dory ever after.
I just want to chime in here, Troy, with regard to what the Premier was saying about his role as the Foreign Affairs Minister. And I just want to say that I have to tip my hat and give kudos to the Prime Minister, Dr. The Honorable Timothy Harris, when he was delegating the portfolios, that he made the perfect choice in making the Premier, the Honorable Mark Brantley, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. I will go out on a limb here, and I will boldly state, I don't think the Premier will probably say that himself, but I will boldly state that the records will show, if the records are checked, that Premier Mark Brantley has been easily the most outstanding and effective Foreign Affairs Minister since we gained political independence. And I don't think anybody can challenge that. When you look at the results that the Premier has brought in terms of the diplomacy, I know that there's always a song and dance when he travels, but when you're a foreign affairs minister, you must travel. But the fact is that every time the premier traveled overseas, there have always been results. He does not go on a frolic. Whenever the premier travels overseas, there have always been results. You have heard of the things, some of the things that he have outlined. And of course, you have also heard of some of the things that have come to Nevis in terms of the ambassadors and so on. And of course, Alexis would have touched on the training and so on as well. Mm-hmm. And this is the manifestation, the perfect manifestation in our party's mantra, people matter most, because the people of Nevis have benefited tremendously from the relationship that we have now in team unity as opposed to what was there before. When you compare, it's apples and oranges. Because when the premier spoke about when the checks of divisions were bounced, and a division was sitting in government, the same government, but bounced our checks. Now, treasonous. I am treason, yes. Highway treason, and I am wondering if an explanation has ever been given by that division as to why he sat in government and allowed that to happen to fellow divisions. And I think divisions have taken this very lightly, but this is not something that people should take lightly at all, because that was total disregard and disrespect that was meted out to divisions, and that will not happen again. And that is why we are here, and we are saying that it is important that you send all three of us to St. Kitts. We will continue to represent you. We will continue to ensure that you, the people of Nevis, matter most. Because when you compare the representation that you have gotten from the CCM in Team Unity and the representation you have gotten from the other party in the other coalition governments, it's like comparing apples and oranges. Mm-hmm. Absolutely nothing came to Nevis. And in 5 short years, in this Team Unity construct, what we have seen come to Nevis, of course they're saying we are going cap in hand, but we are going for what belongs to us. And what we have seen come to the island of Nevis, the unprecedented development that has taken place in this little island as a result of this Team Unity arrangement, I mean, there's nothing you can say in terms of comparison in what would have taken place before as opposed to now. And so I personally believe that there's hardly any option, there's hardly a choice but to send us. We are the ones who will represent you and represent you well, and we are the ones who will bring the fruits back to Nevis.
Gentlemen, I agree.
Oh, okay. No, well,
this is a discussion.
It's okay. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder up here, but you know, let's move on a little further with respect to what we have realized out of this relationship and how important this relationship has been. You know, today I visited the Newcastle police station. I was just passing by and I just went inside. It's taking shape and it looks absolutely beautiful inside. And there were 2 persons with me and they asked me if this is a police station. It was so marvelous in terms of porcelain tiles on the floor and the cupboards and all of the amenities inside are looking marvelous. But I bring that up because we can recall what was there prior to we undertaking that project back in 2017, 2018, thereabout. But I want to go one step further. I know that will be spoken about time and time again, but late last year we received a call from the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Hilroy Brandy, and I want to commend him for his effort to date. And a vision, of course, yes. Well, I don't know what would have happened before, but I will say to you that he called and said he's preparing his budget for the 2020 cycle, you know, and he asked us to present to him the costing to repair, refurbish, renovate, whatever the word can be used, whatever word can be used, of all the other police stations here on the island of Nevis. So we would have visited the police station in Charlestown and also the barracks here at Bath, the police station in Cotton Ground, in Gingerland, and also the barracks in Butlers, to assess what is necessary to get those repairs done. Now these are, this is an entity, or it is not managed, but it is the responsibility of the federal government. And he would have seen it fit to call and said, do an assessment and get him the estimated cost so he can put it into the budget. So that is something that should roll out this cycle as well too. You know, we've had our challenges with COVID-19, but of course the budgets throughout the Caribbean have been impacted. But I say all that to say that even those, before we are to go back into government with a new mandate, we already know that these are things to be done from the federal level. And even the fire hall over there at Newcastle will get an upgrade as well too, and work will be done on that. So I just want to ask myself the question and ask the general public, well, were these things being done before? And in as much as we have seen a police station built there in Cotton Ground, which I commend the NRP for, of course, we have to take some commendation as well, because this structure that we would have placed up there in Newcastle, it is a massive structure, over 15,000 square feet. If you're going to rebuild, we always believe in the case of the Treasury building downtown, if you're going to rebuild bigger and better, so that you're actually building for the future. And that is what we have done up there in Newcastle, and also the same case there with the Treasury building in Charlestown. We are building for the future, and our future depends on a solid foundation here in Nevis, meaning a government that manages the affairs of the NIA with that particular love and desire to propel the island of Nevis forward, and coupled with that, the relationship with the federal government to ensure that we're in harmony and in sync, and making sure that the people of Nevis are realizing the true fruits of their citizenship. I said on Saturday night that the people of Nevis are not half of a citizen. We're not half of a citizen. We are full-fledged citizen of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and as such, whatever goes on in the Federation, it has to involve the people of Nevis to make the decisions, to capitalize on what is to be capitalized on, especially anything that has to do with foreign dollars that comes in for our passport or that national asset. We should capitalize on that. Training we must capitalize on. Every facet of government must be there for us to capitalize on, from the federal level and also brought back to the local level, so that our people here in Nevis their lives can be transformed accordingly.
Someone on the live just said that Nevis is sending 3 top batsmen to St. Kitts. So
well, it's 2 opening batsmen you normally have, you know. So you have they said 2 up and 1 down.
Top batsmen. So
1, 2, 3.
We're not making any joke here. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard so many things about so much benefits that we have gotten. We have gotten persons on boards that have never been on before. We now have ambassadors from here on Nevis. We have persons working in foreign services that we have never had before. All of these through the work of your CCM party, through the work of the Honorable Premier as a member of the federal government. Persons from Nevis have been in the federal government before. In fact, his predecessor as the Minister of Foreign Affairs was a Nevisian. We can't go and ask. We can't hear about one Nevisian who was given a post, one Nevisian.
No. Well, you just ask for one Nevisian who was given an ambassadorial position anywhere.
Exactly.
You know of any?
Never happened before.
Okay.
So this is a first, and this just shows you that the CCM going into government is thinking about serving the people. Just the other day, the Premier would have made a post where he spoke about when these gentlemen go to St. Kitts, and you know, a few years after we have elections here in Nevis, CCM wins, so they're out of a job. They run over to St. Kitts. All of them run over to St. Kitts to the federal government. But we are going to come back to that. Before we get to that, Premier, I want to talk a bit about crime, or I want to ask about crime, because over the past few years, the scourge of violent crime in St. Kitts and Nevis has been rampant. So far, for the year 2019, we had a big dip in the murder rate due to violent crime and so on. And so far for 2020, that has continued. Can you speak a little bit about crime, because we know when the crime rate is high, the opposition makes a lot of noise about crime. But we have not heard them speak about crime in recent times.
Well, in order for us to be a prosperous society, we have to be a safe society. People must be safe in their homes, in their businesses, the playgrounds and parks. Our tourists, when they come, must feel safe. And there is capital in that safety. Safety and security gives the country the necessary capital in terms of reputation to advance the country. All of us would have lived through 20 or so years of constantly escalating crime and violent crime. We would have seen where our young people were dying, mostly men, but some young women as well. We would have seen, and all of us would get the WhatsApp, we get the call in the dead of night that somebody has been shot, somebody has been killed. I frankly, anytime I picked up my phone and I saw it was the police, I thought to myself that something bad had happened. Now when the police call me, the superintendent in charge here in Nevis calls me, I no longer have that dread, because I feel a sense of peace has come back to our country. And how did that come about? It came about because as a government at the federal level, because the federal government is charged with national security, we said something had to be done. The young men who had aligned themselves in different configurations in different parts of the island and the country, they themselves felt the urgent need to do something, because they themselves were living in fear. They couldn't, some of them, go to some parts of the island. I recall, for example, that a young constituent of mine called me every day for at least 2 to 3 weeks. And his constant refrain was, I need a job, I need a job, I have a young son, I need a job, I need a job. And I eventually found him a job. And I said to him that I found you a job. And where was the job? The job was up at the hospital. And I realized that he stopped calling me. And so 2 or 3 days, I called him. I said, but you were calling me every day asking for a job. I've now found you a job. He said, boss, I can't work in that area because we have beef with the fellas in that area. And so he could not accept gainful employment to support his family because he could not travel comfortably to this area. He felt uncomfortable. There were people on this island, believe it or not, young men who could not go to certain parts of the island and therefore were prisoners in their own community. Dare not walk outside their community for fear that they would be accosted. I believe that the St. Kitts and Nevis, and more specifically the island of Nevis that we have now, is a far cry from what was. And tonight, as I was on my way here, I looked at some statistics. We have gone from a high of 35 murders in 2011. 35, the bloodiest year in the history of our country, to a state now where this year for 2020, we've only had 5. The island of Nevis has had a high of 10. To the point now where we are at a point where last year we only had 2. And that was the lowest that it had been since 2006. So the lowest that it has been in 13 years. And I have to say, to God be the glory. And whilst there are many who have come and they've argued that this peace initiative isn't working, it's this, I go back to where I started. The proof of the pudding is always in the eating. And I make no apologies for saying that the primary role of any government is to ensure the safety and security of the people. I was a loud voice when I was in opposition in the parliament in St. Kitts. And I've been a loud voice in government to say that we had a responsibility to fix this problem. And I'm happy that even as we are here tonight at Campaign Central for the CCM, mounting this virtual campaign for the election of our candidates, that we feel a sense of peace. That we are not worried that we will be accosted. And I believe that that peace will pay dividends for our country. It doesn't just stop there. because as part of that initiative, we have also rolled out a comprehensive CCTV program on the island of Nevis. COVID has intervened, but were it not for the intervention of COVID, our CCTV center, brand new state-of-the-art facility that we have built, we have the equipment, that equipment would have been in, and you will shortly see, as we try to get back to a sense of normalcy in the country post-COVID, that you will see CCTV, because we have committed and the resources have been committed, and we have now the equipment for which we were waiting. It's actually here, that you would have the entire island covered by CCTV. That is an added investment in our safety and security, because we know our police work hard, but they have to sleep. They get sick sometimes. They can't be everywhere every time. But these cameras, once they're maintained, they're always awake. They don't go to sleep. And so investment in technology brings us forward. And we have made a quantum leap in saying that, listen, we must now deploy technology in the fight against crime. And so I feel that the Nevis and St. Kitts of today is a far cry from what it used to be. And if there's one reason and one reason alone why people should give us in the CCM another opportunity, and to give Team Unity another opportunity, to keep the momentum, it has to be our success in reducing crime, to a point now where I think all of us can say, even the worst naysayers can say, they feel more comfortable in Nevis. Nevis was a place where you could go on the beach at any hour. You could walk the streets at any hour. And we all recognize that at some point we had lost that. Well, to God be the glory. I think that those days are now back with us. And that, I think, is a significant achievement. I would like to get back to a stage in Nevis where our murders at the end of the year are zero. But until such time, we continue to make good progress, and for that we ought to be grateful.
Troy, there's certainly a calm that is over St. Kitts and Nevis at this moment right now. And irrespective of what people are going to say, because there will always be a debate, but irrespective of what people will say, credit must be given where credit is due. And credit is due to the Team Unity administration for this period of calm that has overtaken St. Kitts and Nevis. And we are all very happy for that. And of course, we are all beneficiaries of that calm. Because of course, here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we know that we are a very small, close-knit community. And people don't realize that these crimes affected everyone. I mean, practically almost in certain villages, almost everybody is related. And once somebody is murdered, the entire village, the entire country is in mourning. Families are very huge, very extended. And there are a lot of persons who would have lost somebody during this crime wave that was really hitting St. Kitts and Nevis. And of course, we were getting some bad press overseas as well. And we know that when there is a crime wave, the government gets all the blame. So now that there's a period of calm, what is so hard in giving the government the credit? Because the government deserves the credit. And as I said, this is something that was affecting everyone. It affected every facet of society. I know that I'm the Minister of Sports. It affected sports. I know, well, I am the president of the Empire Sports Club. One of the young men who was gunned down in Cotton Ground was actually there representing my club, Empire Sports Club, playing a cricket match. And you know, so what I'm saying, it's affected everything and everyone. Of course, in social services as well, we have programs that are geared towards at-risk youth. And so we in social services, we are always on the front line when it comes to persons who are involved in crime and criminal activity. And of course, sometimes we have to have intervention programs at the community level, at the school level. And so this peace that we're encountering right now, this calm that we're encountering right now, it is a good for social services as well, because it cuts down on the interventions that we have to do. We still have programs where persons who are probably getting in a little bad behavior in school, we have intervention programs. We have a YTS center now, Yes to Success Center, where persons who are getting involved in antisocial behavior can come. But at least when people are not involved in the hard criminal behavior, it is still better for us. And so social services is benefiting, sports is benefiting, and I think the entire country is benefiting in terms of this peace that is taken over and this calm that has taken over our beautiful paradise islands of St. Kitts and Nevis.
If I were to make just a contribution to this particular topic, Troy, I want us to understand, and I want the entire listening and viewing public to understand that every life that is lost through crime is a loss of that potential to contribute to the overall development of the Federation
Absolutely.
of St. Kitts and Nevis. We must understand that you just spoke about cricket. You lose a life of a young man who is engaged or involved in the playing of cricket. You never know if he would have gotten to the West Indies team and could have added to the numbers that we have already put there. You lose a life of a young man or a young woman, that's a potential engineer, construction worker, you name it, an educator. So when you look at the many lives that have been lost, you have to look at it in a larger picture and say that we have lost out on some tremendous potential and talent that could have been here with us contributing social security. Hundreds of lives have been lost. They would have been working, contributing, and of course the fund would have been growing. So you have to understand the overall picture and the gravity of the situation that we would have faced a few years back, even up until just about a year or two ago, when this initiative was introduced to stem the flow and the bloodshed. And I want to commend the Prime Minister, Minister Brantley, and all of those who were involved in that cabinet discussion, and all of the consultants who were brought in, and all of the security forces here on the island of Nevis and on the island of St. Kitts within the Federation, who have contributed. And our young men have to be applauded as well, because they came on board, because they understood then they were going down the wrong road. And that road was leading just one place, and that is across here from us, or some other place that is similar to here. Right? So I want to say that that potential that we were losing, we now have that to tap into. And that is why the skills and the training that we are going to provide for our young men and young women moving forward should redound to the benefit of the entire Federation in terms of building this country moving forward and ensuring that we can realize our true potential here as a federation. I just thought that I'll inject that and make that a contribution to the crime discussion.
I must also add as well that we cannot forget the tremendous pressure that is normally put on the health sector, the health services, when you have this criminal activity on the island, because of course we know when someone is shot, they have to go into theater, they have to go into operation, and you know, there are millions of dollars that is the government have to spend, both in St. Kitts and Nevis, when you have these criminal these crimes. And so a lot of pressure has been taken off of the health sector as well. And of course, the monies that have been channeled previously into the effects of crime, they can be channeled elsewhere now.
Definitely, gentlemen. I think that the government deserves a lot of credit for the initiatives that have helped to take down the violent crime. When violent crime was rampant around, there was a lot of talk about it. We have all gone quiet, and I think we are all grateful for that. And that's just another reason why the people of Nevis should continue to put their confidence in the CCM party. Gentlemen, we've been here all night, we're talking about elections, and nothing controversial has come up yet. It's only good things that we have spoken about. Things, so we have to do a little hardball type of thing. I don't think it's a hardball, but the NRP has been out there, and this seems to be what they have been campaigning about. The NRP says that the 3 persons from CCM who are up for the federal elections to go to St. Kitts to represent, that somehow that you're already working. We are all part of the Nevis Island administration. They have been talking about the Premier for many years, that he's working in Nevis, he's working in St. Kitts, but that doesn't seem to be the issue. The issue seems to be 2 salaries, double salary. So I will start with you, Premier, to comment on this whole double salary scenario.
Well, Troy, I have myself been perplexed, as I like to say, amused and bemused. at this effort by the NRP. Why they would seek to make that an issue, I don't know. Because history has shown that our national hero from Nevis, the Right Excellent Sir Simeon Daniel, of blessed memory, was Premier of Nevis and Minister of Finance in St. Kitts at the same time. Ivor Stevens served in both administrations at the same time. Uriel Swanston was in both houses at the same time. Joseph Parry was in both houses at the same time. Malcolm Gishard, both houses at the same time. Vance Amry, over 30 years, was in both houses at the same time. Mark Brantley also has spent time in both houses. Somehow the noise only started with Mark Brantley. And it draws me to the conclusion that there's something personal to it. Because let us examine the facts. My first election was in 2007, a by-election occasioned by the sad death of Malcolm Gishard, our late great hero, Malcolm Gishard. You know who my opponent in that election for a federal seat was? Hence the Daniel of the NRP, who was then Deputy Premier. He, as Deputy Premier and therefore having one job, applied for a second job to be a member in the federal parliament. The people of Number 9 rejected him and chose me instead. In 2010 federal election, Mr. Daniel, still then Deputy Premier of Nevis, tried again. He said, I didn't get through the last time, I'm going to apply again for the job. The people rejected him a second time. 2011, he ran in the local election, and we know that was ultimately declared null and void. 2013, he ran again against me, and the people rejected him at the local level. 2015, we had a federal election. Roberto Hector, who was then the representative for the people of St. Paul's in the Nevis Island Assembly, one job, applied to go into the federal house as well, and ran against me in 2015. The people rejected him. We look at a youngster like Corey Tyson. Corey would have tried to run at the local and at the federal. I believe he ran against Van Samry and then again against Eric Evelyn. I say that to say, Patrice Nisbet. How could I forget my friend Patrice? Patrice was first elected to the federal house, I think it was in 2000. And Patrice ran election after election after election, trying also to get into the local house. What I marvel at is in none of these elections did any of these good gentlemen say, vote for me, but I cannot handle both jobs. Or vote for me, and I'm not going to accept whatever salary is lawfully provided for. Never did that conversation arise. So what the NRP has now done, having tried and tried and tried and failed and failed and failed, like the fox that could not get those grapes and they after said the grapes were sour, they now said, lo and behold, it is wrong, it is immoral, it is bad that one person should be able to run. And I said to them all the time, I am not selected, I am elected. I have gone to the people of Nevis, as I am doing now to the people of Number 9, and said to them, choose me because I have the necessary qualities to represent you. And since 2007, the people of Number 9 has said, we agree with you, and we will give you the opportunity to serve us. And so they too have applied and failed. And having failed, they have now come up, and every day they're talking about it. And I tell our people, don't be fooled. Because now I hear them saying, well, it's not illegal, but it's immoral. You are not to accept a salary here and a salary there. And I look straight into the camera tonight and I say, all of them, A-L-L, all, who were ever in a position, took everything to which they were entitled. In fact, some of them took things that they were not entitled to. For example, and I use in my few moments just a few examples. Roberto Hector, the leader of NRP. Roberto Hector was Minister of Lands in the Nevis Island administration from 2006 to 2013. As Minister of Lands, he was chairman of the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation. He collected his money as Minister of Lands. He collected his money as chairman of the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation. Mr. Hector wasn't satisfied with that. He and Patrice Nisbet formed a law firm called O'Reilly Attorneys to do work for the same corporation of which he was chair and his sidekick Patrice was board member. And together, over the period of time they were up at that corporation, they collected over $500,000 in legal fees. The corporation is owned by the people of Nevis. So they complained that I am getting 2 salaries for which I was elected. But Hector got as Minister of Lands, Hector got as chairman of the corporation, Hector got again as lawyer. That's 3 by my tally. When we come to Patrice, Patrice collected from 2006, when he became legal advisor to the NIA, a salary as legal advisor. He was at one and the same time the representative for the people of number 11 in the Federal House. He collected his salary there. That's 2. He collected as a board member of the corporation here in Nevis. That's 3. And through O'Reilly Attorneys, he collected again. That's 4. When you add up all that they were collecting, the hypocrisy is laid bare. And all that this is, and I said to the people of Nevis, that's why I say ignore the noise. All it is these fellas. Troy, I'm hearing a new argument developing now. You know what the argument is? These fellas who are contesting for CCM already have a job. We who are contesting in the NRP, we don't have a job. And I have to ask myself, is this a Red Cross? Is this a charity?
Salvation Army.
Or is it that the people of Nevis must select the best people to represent them? So if all it takes is for you, and it might explain, I said it on Saturday night, why some of them have chosen not to work. Because it seems like by choosing not to work, not to be gainfully employed, they can then make the argument to the electorate, Lord, poor me now work. Give me a little job now. But that is not the way that you choose people to represent you. And so I believe that this is a red herring. In fact, going back to Mr. Hector, not that I like to speak about him, but going back to him because he's the leader of NRP. Going back to him, in 2013, the people chose the Concerned Citizens Movement to lead this island. Patrice Nisbet had become Attorney General in 2010 and was still at the federal level in the government. And you know they're like the 2 musketeers. So as soon as the government was lost by the NRP in Nevis, you know what happened? Patrice hired Hector in St. Kitts to be an advisor.
Serious?
And so Hector went back again in the trough now in St. Kitts, where he had applied in 2015, had been rejected. But this was another way to ensure $7,000+ a month he was receiving as an advisor to the Minister of Labor, Patrice Nisbet, in St. Kitts. And that is what I say, when you hear these fellows are talking about who getting what and why is it improper and immoral, I say, but they have, you know, I believe the great Vance Emery, the former leader of this party, and one of the most astute politicians that have come around, a tower of strength, put it best. They are sanctimonious vagabonds. He put it best. You know, he's not a man given to too much talking. But he coined the term sanctimonious vagabonds. And I believe that that is the accurate way to describe how people must make, and you realize this is the only issue they have in this election. They're not saying that if elected we're going to do this. We are saying that we want to strengthen Nevis's hand. We want to strengthen the voice of the people of Nevis. We want to be at the table when federal policy is being crafted to ensure that the people of Nevis are not left behind. Somebody getting 2 salary, me not get none. That is the argument, the only argument they've brought to the people. And I say to the people of Nevis, if they want charity, send them down to the Red Cross. I'm sure the good people down there will look after them. We have the Salvation Army here.
Not yet, in St. Kitts.
They have it in
You
St.
send them to
Kitts.
St. Kitts to the
Send them
Salvation
to St.
Army.
Kitts to the Salvation Army.
Think it's they want to go.
Well, they want to go St. Kitts, so they go to the Salvation Army. Not to Church Street, because Church Street is about serious business, where the people of Nevis must be represented. And that is what I believe these 3 gentlemen here provide. A good team, a serious team. And that is why we're saying to keep the momentum. This is not time to go backwards.
But when you look at this issue, when you dissect it, when you analyze it, it is really a non-issue. Because if you're going to bring the argument that you're going to be getting 2 pay, you're doing 2 jobs. We are living in a society now in Nevis, and it's not a lot of the islands you have this kind of society where so many persons in Nevis have 2 jobs. Have we really sat and analyzed this and realized that numerous persons in Nevis actually have 2 jobs and are getting 2 pay? And I want to ask the persons out there, the Nevisians, who have been latching on to this nonsense about the 2 pay. Those of you who are working for government and then you get a second job at 4 Seasons, do you work for free? Do you tell 4 Seasons, don't bother to pay me, I'm already getting a salary? Those of you who are working for government and you have an additional job at a restaurant, any hotel, at a security firm, do you tell that person, that employer at your second job, that I do not deserve 2 salaries, I don't deserve 2 pay? You're working, aren't you? You're working for your second job, and so you're working for your second salary. And so those of you who have been saying that government ministers in Nevis have no right in St. Kitts in the federal parliament because they're going to be doing a second job and getting a second pay, look at yourselves and see whether or not you yourselves who are criticizing are not doing 2 and 3 and 4 jobs. Because we have a lot of people in Nevis who are doing more than 2 jobs, do you know? Mm-hmm. Persons who are doing, I spoke to somebody the other day, and you know what the person told me? He was investigating a lady, and the lady had 5 employers. 5 employers. And that is no joke, that is a fact. And so persons in Nevis who have been doing 2 and 3 and 4 jobs, you're getting your 3 and your 4 and your 5 salaries. I want you to look at these 3 gentlemen here and realize that we are hardworking, industrious people. We can handle 2 jobs, and that is why we are running in this federal government. We can handle 2 jobs, and if we are doing 2 jobs, we deserve 2 pay. So that there should be absolutely no mistake about that. So I just want to say to the people of Nevis and St. Kitts and wherever you are watching or listening, that we are not doing anything immoral. If we are doing anything immoral, then those of you who are doing 2 jobs and collecting 2 pay, then you can consider that immoral as well. And I just want to say as well, that those of you who do not have a job, maybe it's by design. And I want to say as well, boldly, that you will still remain jobless at the end of this election.
Yeah, well, if I may just make I've already addressed pay or the second salary, and I've done so, as clearly as I can. There's nothing else I have to say about other than to say this, that it seems as though this is more than just to pay. This is probably the NRP trying to select candidates for the CCM party. That is what it probably amounts to, because the NRP cannot beat the CCM with the candidates that the CCM are putting up. So the NRP now is suggesting to the NRP, well, go and select 3 other candidates who they can potentially beat, because they've always selected failures. They've always selected failures to run because they've all failed. But we have demonstrated that we are capable of putting solid candidates forward who are capable of representing any constituency here in the island of Nevis and beyond. But while they were collecting all of these monies that you just heard the Premier articulated, I'm not going to go into all that. What is immoral about all this when you listen to that, right? There are people out there whose lands were acquired. 14 pieces of land. And the NRP refused to pay them. Refused to pay them. That is immoral. That is reprehensible. That is really madness in my opinion. And I'm really saddened by it, by the bare fact that when you own a piece of land, that is something that people have some pride and attachment to. And you go there and take that piece of land from that person and refuse to pay them. That is immoral. That is as low as you can take it. So when you start to make the comparison about immorality, and someone from the NRP accosted me in Charlestown last week, about immorality. So I said to him, when you were in charge of a commission of inquiry around here and was jilting the people of Nevis for $9 million, was that moral or immoral? Well, it was a wild goose chase. And the Van Samry eventually prevailed because he was going nowhere. But I was taking up the people of Nevis money to spend on something. Well, you know for a fact that you were going after nothing. But I go back to this land issue, and we're going to divulge a lot more information regarding that, and we're going to dig into it some more. But imagine you're going to take people's land and don't pay them a penny, but you're going to collect over $500,000, nearly $600,000 up there at the corporation, when the corporation was the one that acquired the land, and you didn't pay them. We are now under a burden at the corporation for, I believe right now we still owe about $2.5 million US dollars to UTC in Trinidad for lands down here at Pennies. While they were there, they paid nothing. They didn't pay anything. Such as what they paid was money that was left behind by the CCM at an account there in the Scotia Bank. So they were drawing down on that $10 million. It wasn't any money that was left there by NRP or brought in by the NRP. So when it's all said and done, you look at all of these things, and we're gonna bring it together on the platform as we go on throughout this campaign, because the people of Nevis has to be reminded about these things. The people has to be reminded that there was a time and a point in time here in this island when this island was under a burden, a financial burden brought on by the NRP. Brought on by the NRP, and they didn't care about you. They didn't care about you. They didn't care about me. They didn't care about nobody but themselves. If we are saying that these are the three gentlemen that are going to represent the people of Nevis in St. Kitts, well, the people of Nevis would understand that they'll get sensible, serious, and solid representation because the facts are there to show. The evidence is there to show that we have gone there between 2015 and 2020 and have demonstrated that we have what it takes to represent. And if you go there to represent and there's some emoluments, there's some monies attached to it, a payment attached to it, what must you do? We have done a lot of things as ministers, suggest that we are in this not for the money, but to represent. We have given up 10% of our salary back in 2013, even before we got into government. And we have done so again now. But lo and behold, the people of Nevis seem to have forgotten. In 2006, when the NRP got into government, the first thing they asked for, and the first thing they did, was to put a 3-man commission together to go the length and breadth of Nevis. You know what the question was put to the people of Nevis? These guys claim that they're not working for enough. Van Samry and the others who left in 2006 were not working for enough. They wanted an increase before they even chop a stroke, as we say locally. That's what we say in local parlance. They didn't chop one stroke yet and they wanted an increase in pay. That's what the commission was going around to investigate and to bring back the findings. But the people of Nevis still are going to sit down with that. Show me what you can do and then we'll compensate you accordingly. We have demonstrated in the Nevis Island administration what we can do, and as such, if we are selected, not selected, but elected to represent the people in St. Kitts, and there are emoluments that come along with it, we'll gladly take what is ours and use it to the benefit of the people of Nevis, because we assist in many things. Brantley can tell you many things that he assists with. I can tell you a lot of things that I assist with. It comes right out of that money. And we do that with no, we don't do that with any sense of, I'm searching for the word in terms of saying that we don't object to doing it, because we are a part of this community and we contribute to this community. So we will do that any day. But I don't want to get into this stupid thing, because it is a distraction, and they know fully well it's a distraction. because they in the same position will do the same thing. Their persons have done their leaders of the past and their representatives of the past have done the same thing. So it's just a red herring in my book, and it's just a conversation that is trying to distract us from the forward push that we have, the momentum we have developed, and the momentum that we're keeping going forward. They're trying to come, so like a Spanish station with some irrelevant stuff.
Well, I would just add this in closing, that the issue of the single person running at both the local and federal levels is a constitutional matter. And I like to remind the public that the Constitution was written by Pam and NRP. So when they wrote the Constitution, they knew that they were creating the opportunity for persons from Nevis to ask the electorate to elect them at both the local and federal level. Indeed, their founder, Sir Simeon, was elected at both levels. So they knew. I remind our public all the time that when that Constitution was written, the CCM was not yet formed. Because the Constitution was in 1983, CCM came later. And so the very law that permits what they now decry was drafted by them. So what really is the argument? I agree entirely that this is a distraction. And that when the facts and the history is examined, we recognize that it is a distraction. So for us, it is about electing these three gentlemen. The Honorable Eric Evelyn in number 10, the Honorable Alexis Jefferson in number 11, and yours truly, I'm offering myself again to the people of number 9. And I believe that this trio, this troika, is the best representation that the people of Nevis can select at this time.
I've ever seen.
Gentlemen,
Maybe.
time flies when you're having fun. We've had quite the time tonight, and what we're going to do is to give each of you a few minutes to wrap up, and then that will be it for this evening. We will start with Honorable Eric Evelyn.
Thank you very much, Troy. Well, it certainly has been a pleasure for me to be here this evening. Of course, we would have said all along that things are different for this COVID pandemic, but I believe our message is resonating. Irrespective of the situation, despite the circumstances, I think we have persons on board, people are interested, people are logged on to what we are saying, and I think our message, irrespective of the noise out there, is resonating to the people of Nevis and the people of St. Kitts as well. Because we must realize that when we go to the Federal Assembly and the Federal Cabinet, we'll be representing both persons from St. Kitts as well as persons from Nevis. And we want to assure persons in the Federation that we are capable. We will bring fantastic representation for all of the people of the Federation of St. Kitts. And that is why we are asking you on Nevis to give us your fullest support. Once again, I'm very proud to be a part of this team, and I believe it's the best team that you can select to represent the people of Nevis in the Federal Assembly and the Federal Cabinet. I'm very confident that on June 5th, the people of Nevis in 9, 10, and 11 will speak, and will speak loudly, and all three of us will be elected to serve the good people of Nevis and St. Kitts. I would once again ask the people, the good people of Nevis 10, for your support. You have supported me well in the past, and I'm looking forward to your support again on June the 5th, 2020. So once again, it has been my pleasure being here, and I just want to say may God continue to bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Troy. I want to start by thanking the entire listening audience for tuning in this evening and being a part of this town hall meeting of a difference. I want to say that I'm running in these upcoming federal elections to win. And I want to say to the people of Nevis 11 that this is your opportunity to turn a new page. This is your opportunity to vote for a candidate who will provide solid representation to the people of Nevis 11. For the last 20 years, for the last 240 months, for the last 7,300 days, you have voted for a representative who have provided you with absolutely nothing, zero representation. If that is enough for you, I will say continue to vote that way. But I know the good people of Nevis 11 well enough to know that you are a proud people and you look forward to the best representation that you can get. If I were to look at St. James, the people of St. James have voted for me overwhelmingly since I have been the representative of the parish of St. James. You, the good people of St. Thomas's, have seen my exploits and the work that I've done for the people of St. James. I want to translate that into some good, hard work for you there in St. Thomas's. I cannot be the representative of Nevis 11 without you coming on board. So whether you live in Craddock Road, whether you live in Jessops, Barnesgut, Cotton Ground, Westbury, wherever you live throughout the parish of St. Thomas's, I want you to understand that the people of St. James will be voting in the overwhelming fashion to ensure that the good representation that they have had over the last 7 years thereabout of my representation will continue and will also be what they look forward to in the upcoming federal elections and beyond. So I want to say to you that I am ready to work for you, to bring you jobs, to bring you training, to bring you, as a matter of fact, I want to say to you that every federal board I would seek to ensure that someone from St. Thomas's is a part of the conversation. And I want to say further that if you can look at me as I stare at you through these cameras, I am dedicated to any task that I'm given. I am ready to work. I am ready to represent. I am ready to join the Honorable Mark Brantley from Nevis 9, the Honorable Eric Evelyn from Nevis 10. I want to join with them so that we can have 3 voices singing from the same page in St. Kitts. No more must we go to St. Kitts with an opposing voice, so that the people over on the other side would want to know what is happening in Nevis, why you're coming down here to fight against each other. We must be able to have a conversation of all 3 voices being there and presenting an agenda that is for the development of the island of Nevis. No opposing views, no opposing voice this time. I want to say all 3 for we in election 2020. And that is a simple slogan that I want to close out with. And thank you for listening once again. Go out and vote on June 5th. Vote for all 3 candidates here. But more so, I'm speaking for myself now, vote overwhelmingly for Alexis Jeffers so that I can make history and become the next representative of the good people of Nevis 11. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.
Troy, if you could please permit me just before the Premier comes in. I know I would have done this on Saturday at the launch, but I'm going to do it at every opportunity I get. I want to just say a very special thank you to the Honorable Vance Amory, who would have passed the baton to me for this federal election. He would have done so at the Nevis Island Assembly level in 2017. And I want to say thanks to the Honorable Vance Amory for passing the baton to me, for me being able to run in this federal election. I think he has done a marvelous job at both the local and the federal level. And I want to say a very special thank you to you, Amory.
Yeah, well, Troy, it's only for me now to wrap this up, and I think we'll have other occasions. The people of Nevis can look forward to the continuation of this campaign. We will be on the platform right here at Campaign Central. We'll be coming out in the communities. We've developed, I think the team has developed a COVID-19 protocol for us to engage in the community. So we will be out in our numbers making the case for the election of the 3 of us to the federal parliament. For me, having seen how the federal government operates and the federal parliament operates, and having been a member of the federal parliament now since 2007, I believe that the people of Nevis need to speak with one voice. That to me is critical. We know in Nevis that we could never form a government on our own. There are only 3 federal seats on Nevis. So some coalition is always necessary, and we have chosen to coalesce with Team Unity. But in that construct, you have to be at the table. You have to be strong, you have to have a voice, so that the people of Nevis are at the center of policy making. We have seen in the past what happens when Nevis has no representation. We have seen in 2013 what happens when a government in Basque is hostile to the Nevis Island administration. We will never go back to that. And that is why we're coming to our people and we're saying to keep the momentum that we have. Whether it's on the issue of crime and the reduction of crime, that you're feeling safer in your homes, that you see the development around the island, the relationship now between St. Kitts and Nevis. You see our people being given opportunities to which they were hitherto denied. There is a certain momentum here that not even COVID-19 can stop. And we say that we are ready. As I like to say, we're old enough to know, but we're still young enough to do. We still have the energy, the vim, vigor, and vitality to take this country forward. And we ask for your support. We ask for you to remain with me in number 9, to remain with the CCM and its new candidate in number 10, and certainly to elect someone in number 11 who will represent you and ensure that you get something from that representation. I close where my colleague Eric closed by thanking the Honorable Vance Samway. He said that Vance has passed the mantle to him. Vance also passed the mantle of leadership to me. And I say it with all sincerity that all of us on this stage are where we are politically because of the work and the foundation that Vance Amry and his team would have built. We are now the generation after him, and surely there will be a generation after us. My wish is that we leave the type of foundation for that next generation to build. You know, when you're building a house and you've done the first floor and you're ready for the next and the next. And we have some young, exciting candidates that are coming forward and are putting their name forward to be considered for the CCM. I believe that the Honorable Vance Samway, if he's listening tonight, should be proud that the party that he was part of founded, the party, this great blue machine, this concerned citizens movement, is in good hands. It's in a good state, and it's in a position of strength on the island of Nevis to take this island forward. Forward ever, backward never. We have the momentum, let us keep it and let us not turn back now. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That's it for this evening. We'll be coming back to you shortly tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we'll be on the big stage. We will be shedding our sitting positions and be giving you a bit more about why you should send the 3 candidates from the Concerned Citizens Movement to Bastille to represent you, the people of Nevis. So in Nevis 9, Premier Mark Brantley. In Nevis 10, the Honorable Eric Evelyn. And in Nevis 11, the Honorable Alexis Jeffers. Those are your choices. Thank you for viewing. I want to thank Von Radio. I want to thank all of the technical personnel here. And do have a wonderful night.
My name is Mark Brantley. I'm the leader of the Concerned Citizens Movement Party, and I will be contesting the constituency of number 9, where I am currently the incumbent, and I'm asking the people of number 9 to stick with me and to keep the momentum. In 2015, the Concerned Citizens Movement took a decision to join with 2 political parties on St. Kitts to form Team Unity. I think since then, the relationship between St. Kitts and Nevis is the best that it has ever been in our history. And that is why we're asking our people to keep the momentum.
My name is Eric Evelyn. I am the area representative for St. George Gingerland in the Nevis Island administration. I am responsible for culture, youth, sports, community development, telecommunications, and information. And in my short 2 years in the Nevis Island administration, I have accomplished a lot in all of the various departments that I'm responsible for. And it's because of the fact that I've accomplished so much why I believe I should be given that nod to go into the federal election. And so I will be a candidate in the upcoming federal elections for Nevis 10. And so I am looking forward to being in the federal cabinet to continue to keep the momentum.
My name is the Honorable Alexis Jeffers, and I am your candidate for the upcoming federal elections for the constituency of Nevis 11. John Quincy Adams, the 6th President of the United States, once said, "If your actions inspire someone to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and become more, then you're a leader." I have been the leader of the constituency of St. James for the past 7 years. I now want to be the leader of the constituency of Nevis 11, St. Thomas's, and St. James. If we are to transform the lives of the people of Nevis 11, then I need to be your leader. I want to be your leader because I am here to ensure that we keep the momentum just as we have done in St. James.